Hey guys, it's me Liz. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have another skull look for you guys. I haven't really put a name to this one yet, but if you want to see how I created this look, keep on watching. Go ahead and start out by putting a primer on, preferably a pore filling primer because we're going to be putting face paint on and you do not want that to sink into your pores. All right, next is our concealer. I'm doing the concealer under my foundation because I don't really like the super bright under eye, so I like to blend it under my foundation. The foundation color that I'm doing is very obviously not my shade, but I want it to have a very like Morticia type vibe, very pale, but you could do your actual shade. It doesn't matter. This is just a preference that I wanted for my look. All right, once we're done with our foundation, we're going to be bronzing our face. I wanted to use this palette that I received in my BoxyCharm. It's Kenia Ontiveros. I want to say that's how you say it, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, I received this in my BoxyCharm and it's a very intense palette, very pigmented. I have not used this for my beauty routine because as you can see, I'm really, really pale. And this is the light bronzer that I'm using in the palette. So I was a little worried that it was going to be too dark, but for this look, it worked out perfectly. And basically what you're going to be doing is just bronzing the edges of your face to, you know, kind of deepen into the hairline and to create our base shadows for our skull. All right, now that our face is nice and bronzed, we're going to be doing our eyes next. I'm using the James Charles palette, but you can use any palette that you want. Essentially, what you want is a light brown, a dark brown, black, and white. So based on the James Charles palette, the first shade that I'm using is called Tea, which is a very olive light brown color. And what I'm going to be doing is concentrating the first shade in the corner of my eye and sweeping it over the lid to kind of create a very smoky look. It doesn't need to be perfect, just as long as you get that base down. And try to concentrate as best as you can towards the outer skirts of the eye to get that smoky look. Once that's nice and blended, we're going to go in with our next color, which for me happens to be the shade Benny, which would be your dark brown. All right, and we're basically going to be doing the exact same thing with the darker brown, but instead of bringing it out as far as the light brown, we're going to bring it in a little closer towards the center of our eye to kind of give us that gradient and not to completely erase the bottom color. And this process takes a while. At least it takes me a while. I always like to take my time with blending. So if you feel like you've been doing this for 10 minutes and you're getting nowhere, that's totally okay. It takes forever to blend colors, especially colors this dark. All right, once you get that nice dark brown blended in, we're going to add our black. All right, so we're taking the shade Spooky and we're mainly going to focus it in the corner of our eyes. We do not want to sweep the black really over the lid. You just want to concentrate it really towards the outside because if you sweep it towards the rest, it's going to overtake the other colors. Okay, now that we have our smoky eye as dark as we can get it with the black shadow that we have, we're going to be taking our white. In the James Charles palette, the white is called Flashback. But essentially what we're going to be doing is placing the white shadow in the inner corner of our eye and sweeping it a little bit over the lid. And this is just kind of to give me a base for when I go over this with my white face paint. And what I'm going to be doing with white face paint is making like a cut crease. The brand that I'm using for this look is Wolfe Special Effects, and I'm using their Clown White, and this paint is water activated. In order for this look to not get really messy at this point, I recommend using a fine pointed brush so that way when you make your lines, they're not very thick and you have more control over what you're doing. And once you get down that white paint, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that white shadow that I had used and set it so it helps it dry a little faster. And once I'm done setting the white paint, I'm going to grab the brush I used to create the smoky look. And I'm not going to add any more product. I'm just going to take whatever product is left over on that brush and sweep it over the white a little bit to blend it in. Okay, now that everything is nice and blended, you're going to be taking your eyeliner. Any eyeliner works, just as long as it's a matte black eyeliner. And you want to make sure you make a very thin line because if it's a very thick line, you're going to be hiding all the work you did and you're not going to see much of the shadow. And I chose to do a cat eye for this look because I kind of did my shadow in a cat-like way and I'm just kind of following those lines. Now that the eyeliner is done, I'm going to be moving on to my eyebrows. All I did was do the soap brow technique because I just wanted them to lay really flat against my skin so they wouldn't stand out. The flatter that you can get your eyebrow hair, the better, because you don't want any of the individual hairs to stick out because it stands out in the paint when your hair is not flat against your skin. I felt like there was something missing from my eyes, so I did go back in with the shade Benny and placed some shadow under my lash line to kind of blend in and soften the overall look. I also went in with a thin layer of mascara just to cover up any of the white powder that I had on my lashes. Also, be very careful with your mascara. I completely messed up and got my mascara all over my cheek because I dropped it, and I had to erase my entire base and start over, which is why I'm pale all of a sudden. But I mean, that's fine. I'm just going to add my bronzer in later on in the video. Using a fine pointed brush, you're going to begin doing the outlines of your skull. I'm using the same paint by Wolfe Special Effects in Clown White, and I'm not doing a full-on circle around my eye socket. I'm just doing essentially two like crescent shapes, one inside of the inner corner of my eye, one going around the outside of my eyebrow and ending right under the middle of my eye. So I have a circle but not a complete circle, if that makes any sense. Next, we're going to be doing the details that go around the eyes. The basic design of the eyes was to be very henna inspired, and another way to look at it is they kind of look like sunflower petals. And it's a very easy design. I'm just taking 3 shapes to the petal, small, medium, and large, and I'm going from small to big, and after the big one just go back to small and then back up to big. So it's very simple, nothing complicated. And these by no means have to be perfect. Mine clearly are not perfect, but it doesn't really matter when you look at it from afar. It just all kind of blends in, so don't worry and don't stress on the little details. I did fill in the petals with just like random lines and dots, and like I said, it doesn't have to be anything perfect. When you look at it from far away, it just all kind of blends in together as one look. By the way, try not to use a lot of pressure on your brush at this point, because the harder you press, the thicker your lines are going to be, and you really want to have nice thin lines. So try to have a very light touch when making your designs. I'm also going to be placing some dots around my eyes to represent where I'm going to be placing my pearl rhinestones. So it's just, that's why I'm making random dots on my face. Now I'm going to begin doing the mouth portion of the skull, and you're going to start out by drawing 2 white lines, just stretching from the corner of your mouth outward. And I'm stopping about mid cheek so I can do another line that goes from my sideburn down to meet that line to create that jaw line shape that skulls have. And be very careful to have a light touch here because you don't want to have a very, very thick line. I'm also painting over my lips with a nice gold color. I believe the exact shade is called Aztec Gold. And the reason why I'm not using a lipstick is because I want it to dry down, because I'm going to be painting over this as well. If you do use a lipstick, try to make sure it's matte or that it dries down completely and it's not wet. Now, the rest of you, if you didn't mess up like I did, have contour all over your face. And I did realize that I've been saying bronzer, but every time I say bronzer, I mean contour. And what you're going to do is you're going to go back over a little bit where your contour is already, but you're just going to focus it around the white lines that we made. And we're just going to deepen the contour there because we really want to give the skull a more hollow, deep set look. And the best way to do this is just to kind of go back over the contour we have previously had and just deepen those lines. You're going to contour under the line and you're going to contour over the line as well. And I'm still just going in with the light contour shade. I'm going to deepen and just focus in on the depth with the darker shade in a little bit. And this is just me going over the contour that I previously had to erase, and I'm just adding it back in. And I'm also taking the darker contour shade and just deepening the outer edges of my like hairline to kind of blend it in. And I'm also going to be taking the light contour shade and adding it right where I did that first line on the inside of like my nose, right under my eyebrow, to kind of deepen the eyes and give them more of a hollow look. And this also helps the white lines stand out a little bit more. And if you're noticing, I did get bronzer all over the white designs that I've made, but that's okay because I did plan on retracing the white designs once again towards the end to just make them really nice and clean. I'm also taking a more small pointed brush and going into that dark contour color and just really deepening right under my cheekbone line and my mouth line to really give you that hollow look. Now that I have placed most of the contour where I want it, I'm also going to go back in with the lighter contour shade and just adding it right under my eyebrows and on my eyebrows to deepen my eyebrows because they're looking a little pale at this point, and I just kind of wanted them to stand out a little bit more. And I'm going to be taking that small pointed brush that I use for the contour and just adding more contour around like the lines around the eyes. And I am going to completely cover the white designs that I did because I thought it would look nicer if I had a shadow inside of the petal. And that's not a problem because, like I said, I'm going to go back over all the white lines that I did towards the very end. And it's really going to help the lines stand out when there's contour covering them all over the place. And the lighting in my video is going back and forth, so just ignore that. All right, here we go. I'm starting to trace over the lines again, and hopefully the camera will stop focusing on my hand and start focusing on actually me doing the work. There we go. So here I am going over it, and as you can see, it's very white at this point because against the contoured background, it just really stands out. And we're just going to trace over everything. And again, remember, the lighter the touch you have, the thinner the line is going to be. And if you don't trace over the previous line perfectly, that's okay. I mean, just try to get it as best as you can. The bronzer covered up so much of the white that it doesn't really stand out. If you really look at the petals, I definitely did not go back over them perfectly, but you cannot even tell. So just do your best. And make sure that you have enough product on your brush so you don't have to keep stopping and re-adding paint because that's just annoying and it just makes it go by faster, and it also makes it look a lot smoother when you don't need to constantly stop to add more paint to your brush. Honestly, at this point, you can kind of let your own creativity take over. You can do exactly what I'm doing, or you can do basically anything. It's just the more you add, the better it looks. And I'm going to be getting more into the detail of like the mouth, and I'm going to add a little bit of like what I think is a henna design to my forehead as well. And just as long as you fill in all the gaps in your face, it will look nice. Okay, next I'm going to be doing the nose, and honestly, I'm just doing like a teardrop shape on my nose, painting it white and calling it a day. I didn't want to focus too much detail on it. I'm always really lazy when it comes to my nose, and I just do the bare minimum, and it ended up working out and looking cute, I think, but that's just me. Once I got the shape that I wanted, I just outlined it in black, did a gray line going down the middle, and that was it. Okay, for the mouth, I wanted to do the easiest design that you could do, and that's basically just white lines going down your lips. You start out with one big line going down the very center of your lips, and then you mimic the same thing on the left and the right, and you want to make sure you get it nice and even. And by even, I mean spatially even. Like, you don't want one line closer to another than on the other side. You just want to have nice even spacing. And make sure that your lines are going from big to small. So the biggest line should be the one going down the center of your lips. And the further out your lips you go, the smaller the lines get. So it does a nice gradient. This is also why it's very important to make sure that the lipstick you're using or whatever paint it is you're using dries down completely, because these white lines are going to go all over the place if whatever you have under them is wet and moves. And as you can see right now, I'm going back in with some very thin black paint, and I'm creating a shadow under the white line. And I'm also doing this to help that white line stand out even more. Try to get those black lines as thin as possible. And once that is done, I'm going to be moving on into the forehead design. And it's basically just a big henna piece that I saw online, and it's literally going to be lines and squiggles and circles and dots. It's nothing complicated. It's really hard to explain, so all I can say is watch and try to mimic as best as possible if you want to do this specific design, but you could do anything to your forehead. I would just recommend doing a mirror effect. And by mirror effect, I mean whatever you do on the left side, mirror it exactly or as best as you can to the right. And usually what I've noticed, a lot of people tend to go for like flower designs or anything with petals, anything that is very easily mirrored that you can do on both left and right. So if you have two different things going on the left and the right side of your forehead, it's just going to be off and it's not going to be centered and rounded out. So whatever you do, just make sure, like I said, it's mirrored. And I'm just adding a bunch of white lines. I'm filling in the space. I don't want a lot of empty space to be happening in this design, so I'm just making it up as I go kind of at this point as well, just adding petals, and random dots. Now I'm doing the bottom half of my face, and I opted for just doing 3 big petals on my chin to make like another flower design and just fill in that space. I didn't do an entire flower because no one can see under my chin, so it doesn't matter. And like I said, I'm just doing that same mirror effect. So right now I'm doing some like squiggles on the left side. I repeat the same squiggle on the right side, and just everything I do on one side, I mirror to the other side. And I'm doing a lot of echoing. And by echoing, I mean just tracing the same line over and over and over to just fill in that space. Once that is complete, we're going to be adding contour to our neck and chest. And what we're doing essentially is highlighting our clavicle bone and the neck tendons. I think that's what it's called. The part that sticks out in your neck, you really want to deepen that. So when we draw in the neck bones, they really stand out. And when we draw in our clavicle, that really stands out. And wherever your neck kind of sinks in and you get that pocket, you just deepen that with some contour. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Just get the contour on there, get those areas nice and deep. So when we paint on the bones in our neck, they stand out nice and neat. And basically, I'm going to keep this shape and design super simple. It's 3 rectangles, paint them white, and that's going to represent the neck bones. Not complicated at all. I did kind of round out the corners because I didn't want like a perfect rectangle. I didn't want it to have any sharp corners whatsoever. And you are going to have to layer it most likely because I really want this to be super white. So once that first layer is dry, just go back over it. And next, I just painted on the most basic, simple clavicle you could do. And it's like a rounded check mark. And it goes from really thick in the center to really thin. Get those lines on there. It does not need to be perfect. Also, keep in mind that you can make this as detailed or as little detail as possible. Like right here, I'm adding the rib bones. I'm literally doing 3 lines. And I did like the sternum part, which was like 3 abstract circles. I'm adding the shoulder bones, which is like an upside down triangle, and making sure everything's nice and rounded. And if you do decide to make it more detailed, just keep in mind that we're going to be adding contour between all of these lines to deepen the look, to make it more of a skull look. So the more detail you add, the more contour you're going to have to add to blend it all in. So that's why I wanted to keep it nice and simple because I did not want to go in and have to do all that work. This is supposed to be a very simple look that you can do for Halloween, nothing complicated. And I'm using a variation of the light contour shade and the dark contour shade. And honestly, just add shadow wherever you think you need shadow. And there was like a huge empty space right here where the sides of my neck were, and I wasn't really digging that. So what I did is I just did those exact squiggles I did on my lower jaw. I just mimicked it on my neck as well. And now what I'm doing is I'm going in with my pearl rhinestones, and I'm adding pearl rhinestones everywhere where I think they would look nice. I'm going over some of the dots that I did. Not all of them because that's just a lot of rhinestones and I ain't got time for that. I'm using spirit gum to glue the pearls to my face. Just so you know, if you're going to be using spirit gum, you need to have spirit gum remover. Lash glue works as well. It doesn't have to be pearl rhinestones. It could be actual like those shiny gem ones, but just make sure wherever you place the rhinestones, you do the mirror effect. And also add some on the ears. I just think it looks nice and balanced. I like to incorporate my ears to my looks, and that's basically it. That's the entire look. I went ahead and added my wig off camera, and this was a cheap wig I got on Amazon. I'll go ahead and link the exact wig that I used in the description box below, but it really tied the look together. I did add some putty wax to the hairline because, like I said, it's a cheap wig, so it's a little obvious. So this really helps kind of blend it in. And just some shout outs to the two palettes that basically made this entire look. All right, and that is the entire look. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe because this is just the second of many videos to come. Also, if you guys have any specific requests of a look that you would like to see, go ahead and leave it down in the comment box below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.